Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Fire-Breathing ABM, Orchestrating Target Account Plays Infused with Rich Purchase Intent. I'm Brian Anderson, News Editor at Demand Gen Report, and I'll be your moderator for this presentation. Going to roll through a few housekeeping slides here. Firstly, for those of you who may be new to Demand Gen Report, we are an online media company publishing daily news, a weekly email newsletter, special reports, industry research, and a rich menu of additional content and resources. If you haven't done so already, join our subscriber base of roughly 50,000 subscribers to our weekly newsletter, and check out Demand Gen Report today. We also host a premier live event in Scottsdale, Arizona every February called the B2B Marketing Exchange, which focuses on helping professionals improve B2B marketing and sales strategies and results. Rated the top B2B marketing conference by Forbes, B2BMX brings more than 1,000 marketers together each year for a 3-day educational and networking event that includes more than 85 sessions throughout 6 topical tracks. You can learn more about this unique event and sign up for updates by following the link b2bmarketing.exchange. We also invite you to become part of our online community of B2BM experts. Follow the link you see here on the right to check out our community where you can connect with like-minded professionals, join in on B2B-focused conversations and initiatives, and even compete for some pretty great prizes. Speaking of prizes, we're also hosting a special sweepstakes throughout this week-long series where attendees can win a free ticket to our annual B2B Marketing Exchange, win Starbucks gift cards, and even a grand prize $500 Expedia gift card. If you register for a webinar during this week's series, you will automatically be entered for a chance to win. And if you attend any sessions live, you'll receive a second entry. We will be giving away 1 Starbucks gift card per session, 1 free pass to the B2B Marketing Exchange per day, and our grand prize $500 Expedia gift card will be given out when the series ends at the end of the week. So be sure to attend all this week's webinar sessions for your best chance to win. For today's presentation, we're using the On24 platform. During the presentation, you can access all the information you need from the platform toolbar. During and after today's presentation, please follow along and share your thoughts and feedback on Twitter and LinkedIn using the hashtag BII18. You will also see that you can tweet from directly within the On24 platform here using the Twitter widget on the left-hand side of the screen. We also encourage you to ask our presenter questions. To do so, simply click the Q&A widget at the top right corner of the screen. Today's presentation is slated to run about 25 to 30 minutes with 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A following the session. You can submit your questions using this Q&A widget at any time. Today's session is being recorded and all attendees will receive an archive link to the presentation to go back and review or to share with your peers and colleagues. In addition to joining the conversation online and submitting your questions, we also welcome you to let us know how we're doing in an effort to constantly improve the level of value we provide to our reader base. We've put together a very brief survey that will automatically launch once this webinar session ends. You can also pull up, complete, and submit the session at any time during this webinar by clicking on the survey icon circled here on the bottom of your screen. Before signing off today, please take a moment to complete this quick questionnaire. Doing so will help us better serve you in the future. Now I'm pleased to introduce our featured speakers for the session, Ken Evans, John Steinert, and Will Pringle. Ken is the Senior Director of Marketing Ops at Fuze. As a seasoned demand gen and ops guy from Endeca, Iron Mountain, and Demandware, which was acquired by Salesforce, Ken leads the charge on building strong and lasting results from marketing, sales, and finance through the aligned strategies, processes, and measurements of the marketing ops discipline. John is the CMO of TechTarget, where he helps bring the power of purchase intent-driven marketing and sales services to technology companies. Having spent most of his career in B2B and tech, John has earned a notable reputation by helping build business for global leaders like Dell, IBM, Pitney Bowes, and SAP, as well as for fast-growth emerging players. Will is the VP of Worldwide Demand Gen at Fuze, with responsibility for leading demand generation, field marketing, integrated marketing campaigns, and marketing operations worldwide. Previously, Will served as CMO at FastCloud, VP of Worldwide Demand Gen at Netezza, which was acquired by IBM, and led demand creation at Endeca, which was acquired by Oracle. With that, I will pass it over to you, John. Take it away.
So you have me to blame for this fire-breathing image. I think, for me, it really draws out an important difference between average ABM, which is like another program added to everything you do, and ABM that represents a commitment to really driving measurable impact. And what we're seeing in our client base is that what distinguishes the fire-breathing ABM practitioners is really dramatic. So I wanted to get together with Fuze and talk to you about that today. Here's the agenda. It breaks out into 3 parts. I'm going to set the stage with a little bit about where a lot of learning on our side comes from, and I'll do a couple of warm-up case studies about some other clients, and then I'll hand off to Fuze, and they'll take us really on a deep dive through their wonderful story. Then I'll come back and talk a little bit more about our Priority Engine Real Purchase Intent platform, and give you some takeaways, and then we'll get to Q&A. So let me get to it. Sure. Because not only do I fondly remember the days when my kids chased the ball around the soccer field, but also because it sometimes reminds me about the way we in marketing go after a new idea like ABM. We really put our hearts into it, but we don't necessarily have all the structures necessary to play the game effectively. In our client base, we've got 400 customers using this purchase intent platform called Priority Engine, and our customers break out against all types of really hyper-specific enterprise tech companies, and you'll see how the information embedded in the platform and available to the clients gets put to use in a few minutes. Now, among these clients, full 76% of them are actually declared users of ABM, so they say we have an ABM program, and they fuel those programs with more than 8 million exported active prospects. These are people who wouldn't be leads if they weren't using purchase intent. They wouldn't be visible at all. So this is something that's very different about using purchase intent. These folks have created 19,000 ABM lists, an average of 48 different lists per client, to support who the accounts are, who the exact accounts are that they want to keep their eyes on and activate against. And they're supporting an average of 14 campaigns per list as they ramp their programs. So now what I'm saying here is that all 6 of these things, and you might have a list of 8 and you might have a list of 4, are things that you have to get right to succeed at ABM. But the first 4 of them are really things that you get when you put in a foundation of purchase intent. But the last 2 really take connectors and organizational thinking and action on your part in order to get the value out of this new data capability. And so it's activation that I really wanted to talk to today, because the clients who activate better are the ones who create these fire-breathing programs. Activation that's so important is this connection between marketing and this hybrid marketing-like, sales-like organization that we call inside sales or tele-based sales activity. And it's these folks that I think are so critical and make or break in the ABM activity stack. So we're going to talk a lot about that. A client called Druva who plays in the backup space, and they had about 4,000 clients. They were doing well, but they saw a market opportunity that if they could just create the solution and pursue it, they'd create a whole new hockey stick growth opportunity. But in order to do that, they had to move from a legacy sales structure and set of incentives and SLAs all built around their old business to a new set of sales goals and teams assigned by product and by account, a new set of SLAs, and a fully transparent way of measuring their progress. And this starts to look a lot like an ABM program. Now, there's another layer, or you might even say above that, another layer of alignment that's necessary. Because they were launching a new product, they were going to require advertising and things like that, and they need to spend more to create the teams to support it and the processes to support it. So they actually had to create this alignment, and this was done by Ryan McCurdy, our client there who runs Demand Gen. He recognized that he needed executive support to drive this process, to make it healthy, to create momentum, in addition to the fact that he naturally had to be connected to his sales team. So that's a very organizationally focused alignment that he had to drive. And on the right here, he also knew that to sustain that, he needed to improve his BI capability so that people could see what was actually happening on the ground in a way that was not influenced by internal departmental structures. In addition, he put into place these weekly go-to-market meetings between Demand Gen and the SDRs, and weekly meetings with the Phoenix solution owners, these Tiger Team meetings where they talked about strategic changes and successes and failures that they were experiencing with messaging and things like that. And look at the results the first real 90 days when this was up and running and going properly. So he saw 30% growth in his shortlist consideration. That means deals that they're actually playing in. 120 plus opportunities added or influenced to their pipeline, and the outstanding 350% increase in quarter-over-quarter revenue, this program running versus the way they did things in the past. And when you look at the productivity here compared to acquiring lists, running this program on real purchase intent actually delivered 33 times the productivity of traditional legacy methods. So now I wanted to turn to another client who had a little bit different experience, different market, and about how important it is to think some things through from the beginning if you possibly can. This is about Masergy, a huge player in the huge market called networking, and they're relatively small compared to companies that they compete with like Verizon and AT&T. And to compete globally, they obviously had to have a very channel-focused go-to-market structure because the geography is simply so big. But they realized that some of the clients that they were going after preferred a direct relationship, and so they decided to serve some of those clients directly. And to help fuel that, they wanted to build a demand gen capability, and so they went and did that based on the learning they had from their legacy business. And what that did is it generated 25,000 leads. So maybe you've seen this, but in your own experience, but it was kind of a disaster. The thing is that they developed that approach based on backward-looking activity, not on forward-looking activity, and those leads were not appropriate for what they were trying to accomplish in the direct business. Their objectives and their measurements were out of sync. So they had to go back to it. And what they did is look really hard at what it would take to make sure everybody on the team understood what they were trying to accomplish. And this involved, first and foremost, the fact that the ABM activity on their part was really going to be measured by real incremental revenue from those target accounts. And those target accounts represented a very clearly addressable a total addressable market within the direct space only. And then Upstream of that, regarding KPIs of marketing, rather than saying we're going to give them leads, what we really want is not just meetings, sales conversations. We want to have high-quality meetings. So you notice that the KPI kind of comes downstream. To activate all this, they put together four different strategies. One, because they're relatively unknown in the space, they had to have an awareness set of advertising, account-based advertising. They use predictive modeling to reduce the total to identify and reduce the total number of accounts they could go after to the ones that historically they had performed well with, and a projection of those. And they use intent to focus on the ones that are active, currently active. And then they manipulate their outreach dependent on how these accounts score and how they're active. Like on the left side, you've got a major set of TAM accounts, and you score them with predictive to suggest what the approach should be and how they fit to what you know historically. And then you use intent to really focus in on who you should be focusing in on now. And you enable that through a structure that provides BDR support across all of it, but routing based on where that particular hand raiser might come from, or if you're doing a cadence against the TAM account queue, who exactly you're talking to on an outbound perspective. And then you're collecting inbound intent, first-party intent on Masergy's side, and you're adding to that the intent that they're getting from TechTarget, and you're using both of those to execute orchestrated plays against a subset, a further subset that's active right now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fuze. Oh, no, I got to talk about the results. And they're spectacular. They've seen a 7x increase in opportunity creation by going to ABM against this group of customers. They have a 50% higher monthly recurring revenue, which is really incredible. But just as important is that they've got a 10% decrease in sales cycle, and they're in a business where the sales cycles are extremely long. So if they can move up that cash flow just 10%, it has a huge impact on their trajectory as a company. So now with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fuze. And I want to share one thing that's really exciting. These are the guys on the phone today who won the 2017 Serious Decision ROI Award for demand creation based on not only what they're going to talk about, what came before what they're going to talk about today, and they're going to update that for you. So now I'll turn it over to Ken, who'll kick it off.
Thanks, John. What we're going to talk about today is three primary parts. The journey to how we got alignment with sales. That was a big part of that award that we won. How we went about launching the target account strategy. So we're going to get through those two pieces really quick. And then I guess the latest and greatest stuff we've been working on is the orchestration and execution of these intent-based campaigns. And a big part of this is sales enablement. And before I turn it over to Will, just for the record, we don't use the term ABM within the walls of Fuze. It's we call it a target account strategy. I think there's a lot of sort of different flavors of ABM, and some of them on the pure side. You could look at what we're doing and argue that we're not doing that exact thing yet, but it's pretty close. So with that, Will.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Fuze. So first up, just to give you an example about Fuze and what we do. So Fuze has a unified application that brings together voice, video, and messaging as a way for enterprises to communicate all together in a single application. Ken and I joined about 2.5 years ago. We've raised $484 million in funding. Our average deal size, we're a SaaS model, $250K ARR. We usually have 3-year contracts, and we have about 1,800 global customers to date. When Ken and I first got to Fuze, we had some challenges, and the first one was around target accounts. So we very much realized that not having a target account strategy was limiting the amount of budget that we have to really focus on accounts, and if we had one, our marketing efforts could be that much better. So we started the conversation with the head of sales that we needed a target account strategy, And of course, his answer was, we have one. All my sales reps have spreadsheets on their laptops all over the world, and they're updating these constantly, and they're focused on those accounts. Of course, marketing had no idea what those accounts were, so we couldn't align and we could not help them. Once we got that point across and we came to an understanding, then it became a job first for alignment. So if you are already at a company and you are looking at really making things better or maybe even kicking off a new project along these lines, look at your alignment first. And the way that we did it is up here on the screen. You can see we had the operations people alignment, inside sales. Make sure you have strong relationships and that they both have a seat at the table, can communicate and talk. If you don't have that, then perhaps look to make a change so that you do. Second, definitely get your SLAs in place and your definitions and your KPIs so that you know what success looks like. Your SLAs are critical so that you can respond to things quickly and that you're all rowing the boat in the same direction.
Part of starting out is, like Will said, we both joined about 2.5 years ago. Is the team before us, we didn't quite have the SiriusDecisions Waterfall set up or a basic tech stack. So these were two of the major things that we had to get set up. So as you can imagine, anyone who's been through this work, we had to get sort of the lead funnel, the traditional lead funnel set up first, and we had to get our tech stack. We are not the cool kids. We don't use Marketo, but we're using Eloqua with great success. Attribution software, we use Full Circle. For marketing performance management, we use Allocadia. It's a great tool. Salesforce for CRM, Seismic for sales enablement, and we use Tableau quite a bit, especially in communicating to sales. So those were our primary ones we got started with, and then we had to execute. So this part of the story is really about getting the basic execution done. There's a lot of traditional lead gen activities happening at that time.
Eloqua was still cool, though, right?
Eloqua was still cool. There's a lot of
cool
stuff. The second piece was, and Will alluded it to earlier, is sales reps did have a target account strategy on spreadsheets in their computer, but how could we actually market to those people with a limited set of resources, people, budget, time, and so forth? So we really had to focus. We had to take that universe and we had to look at what would make us successful. And based on what we sell, Fuze can actually be used by any size, any type of company, I should say, with a size of 500 to 5,000 employees. So we worked with sales. Sales defined this. We sort of guided the process, but there was a lot behind this body of work here in terms of deciding what the profile would be. And this is such an important part. We could talk a full webinar about this, but it really boils down to how you're going to focus. And then not just focus in accounts, but how are we going to assign these accounts to our sales reps. And in our case, we are assigning each sales rep with 200 named accounts, and they pick a top 50, which get a different treatment along the way. And that leaves them and their BDR counterparts who are doing the teleprospecting to also focus on that same group of people. So we are marketing to the same group they're selling into. Of course, salespeople are going to sell to whatever, and we get a lot of inbounds as well. So we're not turning business away for companies that don't match its profile, but this is a go-to-market strategy in terms of focus. Will, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, one thing I would say when we went through this process is we went down the predictive analytics process. We found a predictive analytics vendor that promised us, great data. We sat down with sales. We looked at the different employee sizes and the industries that we wanted to focus on. We went through SIC codes. We did a very elaborate exercise with sales. We went to the predictive analytics vendor. They came back with the data, and it was a spectacular failure. That data was just not acceptable to sales, and we can go into details on why it wasn't, but it was so far off that it wasn't usable, and we had our tail between our legs, and we had to throw that entire exercise in the garbage can. And I think what Ken's about to show you here in the next couple slides is what we did to recover from that, and then it was of course the results from that I think led to us winning the big award from SiriusDecisions, and kind of one of the reasons why we're on talking to you guys today, because we rolled up the sleeves and I think got the job done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's why I titled it, "This is not fire breathing. This is actually just sort of good old-fashioned hard work." So what you see on your screen, I know it's too small to read. I'm willing to share a template if anyone wants to email me at kevans@fuze.com. I'll be happy to share the template here. But what this is the spreadsheet we used to actually give the instructions to the regional sales leaders and their field reps. And once we did all that account identification work, we actually populated these spreadsheets with all the account names and names of contacts that we had. We did a large contact depending project as well, which times have changed even in 2.5 years with GDPR and all that. So this was done globally at the time. But this was it. This was hard work. We actually had to not just set instructions here, but we had a lot of training. There's a lot of sales enablement in our story in terms of just constant being in touch with sales and walking them through this. So what you see is some tabs, sort of a summary tab on instructions, and then what we also did is we had a summary tab. So I'll show you the sort of working tabs in a second. That's less exciting, but this was sort of a summary slide that kept track of things.
I think one thing to just as a setup here is you've got the sales team that's out there working, selling. They have to sell no matter what, and then along comes a marketing team and a sales team that says to them, hang on guys, we really want you focused over here. And so what we're showing you is what we used for that transition in Salesforce with the accounts. We use the spreadsheet as a model to make it easier for the sales reps to respond to it. Essentially, they received it as they're working through their everyday quarter. They stop, they look at the summary tab, as Ken said, they go through it, they look at all the accounts in their territory. We grandfathered all of the accounts that they were currently working on into this spreadsheet so they could just select the ones that they wanted to keep working with. And then any ones that were new, they would just check off, and that would then populate what you're seeing on your screen. And we asked them, again, to get to 200 targets and a top 50 list, and then send that back to us so that we could repopulate it into Salesforce.com. And then once that happened, we were fully in sync. And there were 17 different sales leaders, because there were 17 different territories at the time, and they all needed to do this. So it was quite a large exercise.
Yeah, and that's large as an operating rhythm to get this done on a quarterly basis. So this is just initial work, and this is just an example. Again, I can send you the template if you want to see it, of literally the list of accounts that they had to choose from. One little interesting fact we found in our data story was with the predictive analytics vendor, salespeople are skeptical, at least we've found in our careers, of what marketing delivers. And data, of course, is the crux of so many things we work on. So we actually had hyperlinks. We took the effort and put hyperlinks into the spreadsheet that linked the account to their account page in LinkedIn. And that was really important because that's the first place salespeople normally go to say, are these guys smoking something? I don't think that's an account that fits the profile. So we actually, instead of getting fancy, we did the basics, and we really used LinkedIn initially as a barometer of what the account employee range, that's a key factor for us, was. So these are some of the little tips and tricks that we used.
That worked out great because then, so the sales will look at the account, they click at the account. So it says in the spreadsheet that they got from marketing that they have between 500 and 1,000 employees, and they're like, I better check LinkedIn to verify that. They click, oh, lo and behold, it's a perfect match.
Right, exactly.
That's where we got the data.
These guys are good.
Yeah, so it ended up working out great, and that came a long way. Okay, so next, how do we execute? So once we have the target accounts, there was alignment in Salesforce. Now marketing can actually go to town. Because what we always heard from the sales reps is no one knows who we are. Well, with 30 million accounts in North America and a limited marketing budget that works out to about a nickel per account, we couldn't get to every single account in North America. But if we could limit that down to, let's say, 20,000, and of that, maybe 8,000 of them are target accounts, and of that, maybe 2,000 of them are in the top 50, now all of a sudden our little nickel per account goes up to thousands of dollars per account. And now we can focus. And that's exactly what we did. So we started by turning on ads with LinkedIn, making sure that we were targeting all of the accounts so they would know who Fuze was beforehand. We nurtured all the contacts, so we built out a contacts database at the accounts. Once we knew the accounts, we didn't know the people there necessarily. We needed to figure out who those people were. Now we have great nurturing programs going on. We flipped on retargeting. Of course, everybody comes to our website, and that cookie pool goes up as you're doing a good job with target accounts, so retargeting starts to become more effective. And then last, we're marketing to active opportunities. So we extract all of the active opportunities that are in scoped pipeline inside of Salesforce each month, and we take that list and we upload it to LinkedIn. And so all of those accounts that we have active sales cycles and active deals at, all of those now get, every single employee at that company gets Fuze ads as long as they're in an active deal cycle. So we feel like that's been effective for us in helping the sales pipelines close faster.
Right. And again, we're not done. So now we're going to transition into, I guess, what John calls the fire-breathing sort of phase of our journey. So a couple of things we did, a couple of big important things we did. We moved from the traditional waterfall to more of the demand unit waterfall. And so the other thing we used is Engagio. I'll show a tech stack here in a second. But we needed to start providing signals to the reps that own these target accounts on the account level, what was working, what was being fired up. And you just have to be careful on some of these technologies because it seems like there's so many tech vendors out there, and there's overlapping, I guess, functionality. We're primarily using Engagio for the analytics, and it's very powerful. It allows us to give an account score based on minutes. If you're not familiar with it, it's based on minutes versus a score. And this gives us a lot of power in order to fire off alerts, redirect on marketing campaigns, and so forth. So we matured our funnel, and we also updated our tech stack. So the intent signals, there's a lot of vendors out there. We didn't have the budget for big SEO. In fact, our competitors were outspending us by 40 to 50x, millions of dollars on SEO. And TechTarget, of course, has the 20-year experience in bringing this to us. So not only that, part of TechTarget, but their new priority engine was a big part of our first round of intent signals that we'll talk about in a second. And the other thing I mentioned earlier was Engagio. So that's our new tech stack and still growing. And then the next piece, this is more about TechTarget, but I mentioned earlier the execution started to get more relevant. And also, sales enablement had to get more relevant. So what you're looking at here is a screen grab of an object in Salesforce. So you can sort of, if you're familiar with Salesforce, this is an account record. You'll see some of the sort of the stuff above and below that. But this is where the TechTarget object sort of fits into Salesforce. And so we've been, with our target account strategy, we've been able to train the reps how to use the priority engine in their day-to-day. And, of course, we use it too. We'll talk about our campaigns, how they matured in a second. But this is just another screen grab of the what sales reps see. So this is a target account list of who's surging this week. It's on a weekly basis, so every Sunday the intent signals refresh. And so this tells the rep who's looking at it what accounts are surging the most, under what topics.
I think that's very important what you just said. That's so important because if you think about the way we've been able to market, well, so 20 years ago we didn't have the internet. You know, some of us remember that. And so over time we're getting smarter and smarter. But the smartest we could get 10 years ago, 5 years ago, was getting a log report from your website saying, here's all the companies. We did a reverse DNS lookup, and here we checked out what domain names are coming to your website and who's there. Here's your list. People still do that. A lot of companies still do that. Some of you might be laughing. They're listening to this. And what this does, and what Ken was alluding to, was that it's actually able to say, no, Mr. Sales Rep, of your target accounts and of the universe of accounts you're going after, of the 200 that you have on your list, these two are not only on the website, but here's what they're looking at. Here's what they did. Here's if they downloaded your content, if they downloaded your competitors' content. In our case, if they're looking voice, video, messaging, collaboration, what exactly they're looking at, and many times gives a direct dial phone number and an email. That to me is like nirvana. That's what we all or we're hoping to deliver someday. And so none of it would be possible without a target account strategy, without clear alignment, and then now without the ability to look at these intent signals. And it does marry very well with Engagio, which then confirms that these people are on your website and actively looking at that stuff.
Right. And the last thing that we found why we're fans of the TechTarget product is, part of the battle in enablement is adoption of the technology in the first place. If it has a lot of wizardry to it, but no one's using it, it's obviously useless. So everything here, this is an account record. This is Continental Tires. It scrolls further down the page, but you see a lot of information about who are the people involved in making a purchase decision, what are the topics that are trending, and on and on and on. So you should get a demo from these guys to see the full breadth of it. But this gives them, along with Engagio, which is showing other sort of surging scores, like are they on a website visit, are they coming in through other demand gen campaigns. We're sort of tying all these together in order to give the BDRs, which is our teleprospecting team, and the field reps this information. I'll tell you, it's been night and day in terms of them doing their daily PG, they call it, prospect generation. And so the adoption from the sales team along with marketing using it has been very successful for us.
So this is a look at like Continental Tire, right? If they're a target account for us, this is what they should be experiencing today from Fuze. They're a target account. We've built out the list of titles and specific people that we want to influence at that company, and we're influencing them. So they should be receiving emails from us now. So that's a video email, I think, that's up on the screen there. They're getting ads when they open up LinkedIn. They're getting ads because they're being retargeted on CNN and other places that they go. They're getting content from us. And they're getting direct mail from us. It looks like he's got a Yeti mug. Yeti's a good customer of ours, and that's a video mailer that he has kind of on top of his laptop. So as far as getting them right where they live at their desk, we are doing a great job of that. Now we're starting to be able to feed some of that, back to sales, and we're actually talking about what happens when they stand up and walk away from their desk. How do we get to them? How do we get to them as they walk around?
Right, there. Outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
So all this, I know we sort of rushed through this, but all these parts of the account scoring and the intent signals are really starting to elevate our KPIs, and our KPI is contribution to new pipeline creation. And then I'll pass. Oh, actually, I got next steps after this. This is a slide. Independent research company did this. Where we're winning. Our customer company size of greater than 1,000 employees, which we call the enterprise versus down market or SMB. We've got more subscribers and seats, and I think a lot of that over the last year or so has been due to the growth that we've seen in these strategies. So it definitely has a building and lasting effect. But we're not done. Fire breathing to do. There's a little baby fire breathing dragon there. Some of these are, very common to people. Continue training and alignment. It never ends. It really doesn't. So we make videos. We have monthly calls with the inside teams. We go to QBRs. We're always improving alerts and reporting. We're trying to really squeeze as much value out of all our tech, including Engagio and TechTarget. And we want to expand our intent signals to other things outside TechTarget as well. To be fair, there are a lot more out there. We're going to leverage the signals in a more targeted campaign, and we're always trying new stuff. So we like to we like the adage of fail fast, fail forward. So I see the clock here. We're coming up on time, John. I'm going to pass it back to you.
Sure. So by just making it clear what you're seeing in Priority Engine. Here you're looking at the default screen generated to rank 200 accounts, sort of like what Fuze is doing, in order of the intensity of the intent activity, the demand activity within each account. And then inside each of these accounts, at this management screen, you can see top line of what the account's interest is in the particular technology segment that client has subscribed to. And beneath that, you can see the competitive activity, the number one most interesting competitor to this account, say it was Fuze. We've made another change recently, and we realized that when you're using this overview screen, you might want to jump to directly to an account rather than scrolling down, or to any other account that may be used somewhere in your business. So we've got a universal search capability, and you can just type in 3 letters, about 3 letters for most accounts, and that'll take you to, like, for example, McKesson here. Ken was talking and Will was talking about this view, this summary view, a set of 4 widgets, which tell you even more about the account, and they can appear just like this in Salesforce as well. Let me talk about a little bit about that one on the left. That actually says where the account is in its buyer's journey. So that's a really important signal to the salesperson, because when that thing is pinned over the right like that, they really need to pay attention, because there are a set of plays they probably want to run to make sure they engage and grab that opportunity. You can see in this group that there, in the second one from the left, that there are 28 active people in this account. So beyond the idea that this account is surging, you've got now 28 people, specific people, who you can go after with email and telephone. And if your sales motion involves moving sort of up the hierarchy, we also provide discover org contacts who may not be active, but they're certainly related to this buyer's journey and buying group. To the right, you see drill downs, sort of mid-level drill downs to vendor interests and topic interests, and all of this you can drill down further. Finally, at the top, as part of this most recent release, we've got something we call the persistent URL. And if you think back to what Ken was saying about putting URLs in spreadsheets, even if you don't do any integration, this URL can be placed in any communication between marketing and sales, between sales management and sellers, and they can immediately click into the account that needs to be discussed. Obviously, it can be built into lead objects, opportunity objects, into account records, and it can even exist in custom fields and things like SalesLoft and Outreach. But we think that's making it really easy for people to stay focused and talk about specific accounts, because they can navigate to them really. So what I wanted to do now is close it out by talking about the impact of real purchase intent, for obvious reasons, in establishing a better ABM foundation. Fundamentally, and Ken alluded to this, it's so you can see more demand outside of what you can attract to your inbound property, your own website, and in your lead gen capability, because there's, for every client, absolutely every client, there's way more demand in the market than they're actually able to capture, and we can help show that to them. Then you're going to treat accounts based on this reality, what's really happening in the account, rather than only that portion that you can see, and that will help you build plays that are really responsive to what's going on. Ken was talking about how Engagio works together with intent. So let's not forget the importance of operationalizing alignment and enablement, the idea of changing your SLAs built around this view of the truth that we've been talking about. Making sure that the account view is easy to understand, whether somebody's operating directly in Priority Engine or in Salesforce or another platform, that this URL helps them share conversations about specific observations about an account where multiple team members are involved. And what this all ends up doing is boosting productive activation, right? Because that's what, if you think back to the Masergy case, is so different about fire breathing. Fuze, it was clearly the case that you need to be productive with these accounts. So the real demand is understood. Instead of having this bad leads problem, everybody's looking at the real information. It's no longer about leads. It's about what's going on in the account. And so marketing and sales are on the same page. Everybody knows exactly who to engage with. When you're using Purchase Intent Insight from TechTarget, you have the names and the emails of the people, and you know the topics to talk about so that you're having relevant conversations with those folks when you reach out to them. Everybody on the team is primed with those hooks, whether you're writing email copy, delivering new advertising, or are you speaking to them on the phone? So every piece of the activation, regardless of how you structure your plays, is enriched by this foundation. So there it is. We think that it's a combination of a great data foundation and great activation on top of it that really separates fire breathers from the rest of the pack. Now we'd like to take some.
Great. Thank you, John. Thank you, Ken. And thank you, Will. That was a really great presentation. It was awesome to learn about, from Fuze's perspective, how they're leveraging purchase intent insights into their account plays. Really intriguing stuff. Before we jump into questions, the conversation sparked a lot of great questions. Before we do that, I'd like to remind everyone once again to please share your thoughts and feedback before logging off today. You can do so by clicking the survey icon, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. The survey will also automatically launch when this session ends. So let's get into these questions. The first one I have is from Amy. Amy says, I work for a decades-old company that has old-fashioned sales and marketing practices ingrained into its mentality. How would you suggest companies begin making that mindset shift to operationalize better activation within targeting counts?
I'll answer. So this is Will. I would say, the beginning of this is all about that alignment that we talked about. If there's not good alignment, it won't happen. Ken and I had a great experience here at Fuze, but we've also, we have a background where we've failed a couple times. You need to have good, strong partners in sales. So I'd say sit down, make sure that you're both going in the same direction, you both have the same goals. Definitely write out what those are. So create your SLAs and agree on to what those are. There's a really funny thing that Ken did at Fuze, which cracked me up. When we did our SLAs with sales and we decided how long it was going to take for them to respond to leads and what we were agreeing to for them, and he put them in front of them and said, do you agree with this? They said, yeah, sure. And so he went back and he put it all in DocuSign and he sent it over for their electronic signatures. And he sent it to the head of sales ops, the head of sales, the head of inside sales. And believe it or not, the head of sales actually turned around and said, whoa, what am I signing?
Yeah, that's something we did at SAP. We used to make people sign these things, and we'd share the signatures because it isn't real until you make it as real as you might a financial transaction.
Right. You do refer back to these, as you move forward, and you're successful, or if you're not successful, you refer back and you say, we agreed to this. It's very important that you can point to something like that, so that was the great thing.
Yeah, and, working with sales, sometimes you have to be a salesperson to get alignment with sales. So the stat we always used was, sales and marketing teams that are aligned, I think it's serious decisions, are 18% more profitable than companies that are not. And so one of our classic sound bites was, boy, if we could execute this on plan as described, and you could get, fill in the blank, 18% more bookings, 18% back in time, and so forth, we can improve everything by 18%. Would that be of interest to you? It sounds silly as a marketer saying that and hearing it because it's like, oh my God. But yeah, hook, line, and sinker, it works. So those are some ways we did it, and it worked out well.
That's a great. Amy should do that. Amy, put that in front of your boss. The 18% statistic from Sirius. It's a great one. And for us, if you wanted to listen to this, our data shows that at target accounts, the average deal size it depends on the quarter, somewhere between 20% and 45%.
Right.
Quarter after quarter after quarter for, 6 or 7 quarters that we've been doing this. So if you think about if your company's going to do $100 million this year, if you said, how would you like to do 125 or 145? It really is a huge, for the same effort, if you can achieve those kind of results, they're amazing.
Really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. The next question we have is from Derek. Derek asks for the Fuze team. He asks, how long did it take the company to execute phase 1 of the company's evolution. I believe he's referring to how long did it take overall alignment between the people, the processes, and the KPIs at Fuze.
Yeah, that took I think it's about 6 to 9 months, roughly. It actually started, Will, you started about a month or two ahead of me. And the day Will walked in, he was having a meeting with the SVP of Worldwide Sales and said, this is a strategy we're going to have to deal with in order for us to be effective. And he planted the seed then. And I think it did, actually, it was probably closer to 6 months. I think it wasn't until, so that was roughly November of 15, and I don't think it was until July of 16 that he really bit and committed, and we started to have these conversations around profile accounts and how the process would work and SLAs and all that good stuff. So that piece took a lot of patience and a lot of sort of pitching, and then it really took off after that.
Yep. Great, thanks for sharing that. The next question we have is from Susan. Susan, and this topic was kind of brought up a little bit earlier. She says, I've had some subpar experiences with predictive intelligence in the past. What tips, best practices would you folks share for someone to make the most of their investment in purchase intent insights?
I would say you and I both, Susan. That's we've had the same experience with predictive. As a guy that I was at IBM for a short time, and they promised me this wonderful internal prediction that they could make on our accounts, and they ran all this data. And what they didn't know is I had provided them with data that included all the companies we had already won before they acquired us, and they came back with completely different companies. So it really is. I question some of the predictive stuff. I question some of the data behind it. If they're using Dun & Bradstreet data, you're going to have a problem with a sales team who immediately runs out and jumps to LinkedIn. It's just simple human behavior. When that data doesn't match, then they think that the data is bad, and they won't pay any attention to it.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing, apart from having those experience with these predictive analytics vendors who are all now switching to this intent topic, which I find interesting. So you really have to be careful who you pick and what they say. What we didn't really talk about is when we did a POC with a predictive analytics vendor, a couple of years ago now, we actually went through, and I think we divided and conquered, but we actually looked at least 200 to 500 accounts ourselves and did the research online through Google, LinkedIn, everything we could get our hands on to actually pressure test it to see if these accounts were legit. This is I talk about this a lot in meetups and things like that. This is hard work. This is the core of this is data, and you have to get your hands dirty. You have to inspect everything, and just don't trust it. You have to look at it. You have to refine it. The folks at TechTarget have really been great partners because we are challenging them on a bunch of things that I think, and it's a two-way street, that we're using and we're double-checking. And so you really want to find a partner who works with you because it's not perfect yet. Again, on TechTarget, the reason we like it is because you can actually gain adoption by it. Anything that's big and clunky and spreadsheets and stuff like that, you're gonna run into a slower process. So just be careful on the vendors you're picking in the first spot. Check the data. It's going to be a lot of work, but it's worth the pain to do it. So that's my big advice.
So for our part on TechTarget's side, I want to say don't be too frightened of this because we got a big team of customer success folks who've got a ton of learning on how to help clients build momentum early on this. I mean, it's terrible to buy a solution and you can't build momentum. Now you reject it and you want it 6 months later, but nobody will let you get it back. So we're making a lot of changes organizationally to help clients adopt this stuff little by little. And so we start with the first top 10 use cases and then get deeper and deeper into it. We also are making changes to make the platform itself, the interface you saw, much more usable so you can extract value in lots and lots of little ways. And then finally, I would say that to Ken's point, it's actually a partnership where we're learning more about each client and adjusting and adapting actually how the system works and what appears in it on behalf of that client's unique kind of go-to-market perspective. So we make changes continuously with 2 major releases a year, but we're constantly changing it because this is a SaaS world that we all live in.
That makes sense. Great. I appreciate everybody sharing such thoughtful answers for that. Unfortunately, we do not have any more time for questions here today. However, if your question did go unanswered, we'll be sure to have the folks on the line here follow up with you via email to make sure that your questions get answered. I want to say thanks again to everyone for Fuze and TechTarget for such a great session today, and thank you to all our attendees for taking the time to join us today. Please be sure to join us for our next session titled The ABM Content Challenge, How to Balance Personalization and Scale, which will be taking place tomorrow at 12 p.m. That's one you definitely not want to miss. So thanks again, everybody, for their time, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks all.
Thank you.